Good morning, Phil Guinois with Micah Watkins, Jack Duchesne, and our guest, Don Croyle, today with the ENO Business Success Podcast. This is April 22nd, 2024. And today, guys, why don't we talk about preparation and planning, and how does that show up in not only business, in empowerment, but also just in our lives in general?
Well, absolutely. I mean, how many people just be like, oh, hey, I want to go do this, yet they have no clue what they're doing, and then they just jump into it, and then they flounder around, and then they quit. And then they quit on themselves, right?
Yeah.
And why do they do that?
They have no roadmap, first of all, right? They got no idea of where they need to head and what that actually looks like. So as soon as any kind of little resistance shows up or it's not fun anymore, I'm out of here, right?
Or they're not getting the results. They're not. They're not seeing the results they're looking for quick enough.
Yeah, the results don't show up, and then probably a lack of planning or a lack of preparation or something of that nature.
Yeah, and do they actually understand their target? Big Zig Ziglar guy, right? How can you hit a target that you don't know? You don't know where it is. You can't see the target. So you need to know where that is first. And then I would imagine in the world of prep and planning, then you would roadmap yourself. So how does that actually work for the people that do that? Like they see the target. You have some people that just see the target and they just start. Lisa's one that gets the target clear in the mind first. And then I've never asked her, do you actually roadmap yourself to target, or are you just
moving?
Just moving to the target and everything's coming at you. So if you were going to do it the way where okay, I see the end result. I'm going to have an attorney office. We'll say like Corey, right? I'm going to have an attorney business or office. So in the world of the preparation person or planner, what would you do at that point?
Why are you looking at me?
I'm looking at you because I think you're that guy. You might be that guy.
I'm like a mix between you and you.
Okay.
I'm like a hybrid.
Right.
Well, we did birth him, so he's got to be a little bit of the two of us, right?
Oh, man.
Oh, that works too.
Yeah,
yes.
42 years old, birthed.
He was a big baby to birth. He was 6-something and whatever weight, and that one hurt.
Well, I would say, I was going to say the vision. I think the vision, most people, they kind of have they get some form of vision that they see. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of want to get over here. Are they clear about it? Probably not. They're not 100% clear. They're maybe 50 or 60, maybe even 70% clear on what they want to do, where they want to go, how they want to get they just see it in the distance. And I think a lot of the times, especially business, right? Hey, I want to do this. And then a lot of them just start, they just start going and they start moving. Yet the lack of planning, they don't see the immediate results. And then you can get sidetracked, you get, discouraged, you get, sometimes it works, right? Sometimes people can, like Jack, you can see the clear vision. When you say, hey, this is what I want, you visualize it, and now all of a sudden things are attracting. Like you were talking about with Lisa, right? You and Lisa, if you're visualizing and allowing things to attract to you, how many people are living that way?
Well, it's probably going to be more about the way their mind works, the brain works, just like in the quadrants. Because when I think about it, I'm like the Petapalooza story I tell, where I go into the stadium and I see the vision I want. I see the people coming in. There was never a moment that I sat down and wrote a list of I want KUPD. I need to schedule that meeting. I've got to find this stadium. I've got to do this. I've got to do. There was never a list. There was a vision that I held every morning and every evening of that place packing with the people and the pets and all of those things. And then I'm in action. So then I'm driving down the street and then I notice the stadium and then I pull in there and I start figuring something out in there. Then I decide I got to have a radio station, so I want KUPD. So I schedule a meeting at KUPD, but there was never a time that I sat and wrote it all down. Like Tony Robbins talks about taking a train trip. Once he lost everything, like this guy was a millionaire at 19, and then he lost everything. Like his partners stole everything, like $750,000 he loses. And he talks about being in a 400 square foot apartment on Venice Beach is where he lives now. So he takes a long train trip and spends all that time mapping out his life, like detailed, writing down every step that's going to happen. Yeah, I don't do that, yet I still get it accomplished because of the amount of time I put on the visualization of the end result of what I'm looking for, not all that stuff that needs to happen before that, just the end result. And I pulled it off. Then you think about me and you're like, you're a total promoter. You fly by the seat of your pants. So you see the vision and you just go that. If I have more of an analytical or controller mind, I'm probably going to want the list. I'm probably going to want to see the plan in front of me so I can easily follow the plan. So maybe that's all it really is just the difference. That's why I looked at you when I'm saying, hey, how does that look? Like Melinda at work has a list every day, and she sits there going like this, crossing things off the list.
I love my list.
There you go. See, and I'm fine with no list.
Yeah.
So if this is about planning and preparation, well then, yeah.
Yeah.
What does that look like? If you were going to be start a law firm, Phil, what would your process be?
Well, and I am a controller, and, from a very young age, I can think back, almost as far as I can think and pull up memories of things, whether it was saving money or, my dad would be like, okay, if you want a camera, I'm going to pay for 2/3 of it. You have to pay for 1/3 of it, and then it was like logically sitting down and like working out. Okay, where's that going to come from? What can I do? Where can I go get that? Okay, I got $5, I need X. Where am I at in the process? And then became an Eagle Scout at 12 and a half years old. And, Micah, always be prepared, right? That's one of the things of being in Scouts. And so, for me, like in starting a law practice, obviously, you graduated law school and now you've got to, for me, I'd be laying out, okay, well, what do I need? Well, where am I working from? Working from home, working from an office. Okay, well, if I'm working from an office, what do I need there, right? So I've got to locate an office. Who do I need to know to do that? And then what am I going to need in the office as far as, equipment and all of those things, and literally just start working it backwards. In fact, it's exactly what I'm doing with our expo that's coming up in 3 weeks? Yeah. 3 weeks and 2 days, 3 days, I think. So I created that list and, it's filling the vendors, right? And now, like, one of my things is all the vendors are in place, or, most all of them. We can still get a couple, but, I've got to send them an email. So what's in that email for them, right? So that they're prepared for the event. Well, this week, I'm probably also going to be doing a phone call to each and every vendor one-on-one. Where are you at? What do you need? How can we support you, et cetera? So really just for me, it becomes breaking it down and logically, where are we at? What do we need to do so that I know whether we're on target? And the target doesn't mean that we always hit that target, right? And I've learned that over the years. It used to be like that target had to be a hard date. And it was frustrating for me if we didn't hit that target, on time. Today, with the empowerment and the personal training that's gone on in my life, it's completely different. It gives me a guideline now more than a hardcore structure of what and where we need to do. So, it's just really, it's breaking it down and then like, okay, breaking down this piece, what's involved in that piece, so that it comes together, right? So,
yeah, and that's why I think it's more of a brain thing.
Oh, absolutely.
My brain just doesn't work that way. So I don't know how, I won't need all the pieces broken down. I just need to understand what am I going for? And the thoughts will start to come. Hey, you're going to need a desk. Hey, you're going to need a print. If you're going to have a desk, you're going to open that. You should probably have a printer. So it'll just pop in when it goes to pop in, as opposed to the list. The list is not my thing. So even when I go to make the list, it just doesn't. It's like, nah, I don't want that. I'll just go this way with it.
Yeah.
As long as you can get there. And I think that's why you don't want to just tell people, well, yeah, you can just do it Jack's way. Just visualize the end result as you sleep and as you wake up, and you don't need any list or anything, and everything's going to come to you and attract to you. Well, if I'm an analytical person, that may not actually work.
Yeah.
That may not work for them at all.
And, there's the opportunity, whether that works for them or not, that it comes to them and they don't write it down like, you don't a lot of times. And, there's the possibility of, oops, I had that thought and I forgot it. And now I'm behind I really needed that back then, right?
Yeah, that the process I use in certain times that can have, like on our meetings, if it's us three or when Eric comes in, I have got to the point where I will open a sheet of paper and I'll write down certain things if it's coming my way, so that at the end of the meeting, I can look down at the sheet. Now, sometimes, if we're going to be transparent, whatever, at least I would say as high as 60% of the time, I actually never look at the sheet again. It just I turn to the next page and start writing lyrics for another song or something, and I'll never look at it again. Yet there are some times, if I guess it triggers in my mind, there's some things on here that are like you don't want to not get that done. Those are the times that I'll go back over it and be, oh yeah, I got to call that person, or I've got to order that. I guess it just depends on the list when it's done. I guess this thing, without me thinking about it, looks down and like, nah, nothing that important. That'll be simple, and I don't pay attention to the list anymore.
Well, and I think, what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, and the potential of having an actual physical office that the three of us will be going to.
Yeah.
4 or 5 days out of the week. I think the focus that will happen amongst the three of us with our different styles, the amount of preparation, planning, and the visualization, so to speak, that you're good at, right? I think it's going to just explode what happens overall for the organization. However, I think it's also going to have a massive impact on each one of us as we get parts and pieces from the other people, right? So some of my skill may come over to you just because we're together that much, right? To where it's like,
yeah.
And you'll pick up whatever you pick up out of that, right? And vice versa. Some of that, just focusing and the visualization, seeing the end in mind will come over here, and I'll be better at that piece, and vice versa with you, Micah. There's going to be things that are going to come from you and to you from both of us that, impacts your ability to produce better results as well.
Well, yeah, we already do this subconsciously. So part of it was to get us together in a certain place. And if you notice where my mind went through it, my mind went to, okay, once we get in that place, we need to commit to doing the hemisync. And in those spaces, you're going to start to visualize the end results of what we're creating. The movie is viral. The next area is opening up. The first licensing is happening. The first corporate training deal is happening. I went right to the visualization part, which is perfect because then you would be coming in with the structure and all the preparation and the list and the steps that are going to have to. Now you just blend that together and there's no way to lose. I mean,
yeah,
that's probably the most effective, powerful model that you're going to get.
Absolutely. Well, and so, and I'm an analyst, right? And so, I just operate a little bit differently, not nearly as assertive as you, Phil. However, so if we're talking about preparation, we've talked about, Jack, you're a promoter, Phil, you're a controller, I'm an analyst, and people are going, wait a second, what are they talking about? So the preparation part is actually going and like figuring out, well, how how effectively do you operate? Do you know how you operate, and do you know why? How do you do that?
Well, and if you look at personality quadrants, and those are the terms we're using. So if you want to look up personality quadrants, you'll find them. Yet, if you look at it, you two and myself are sitting on the other side of that line. I'm sitting on the promoter, supporter side that's coming from emotion, all that. You guys are coming over from the logical side, where the lists show up and the preparation and all of that stuff. So it's even sitting in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only problem that I'm seeing right now, or challenge, we'll get rid of that word. We'll just go with challenge. The only challenge I see right now is I'm seeing a 2 against 1 now. All right, no, at least the guest here. And even look at how they position themselves every time we come in here. They're on the other side of the table, people.
Yeah, this is, you know what? It's funny that you mentioned that. Because, we just did a training this weekend, and it's not natural for me to come from the emotional side. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it came out.
Oh, yeah.
It came out yesterday. And, for me to be able to express that to others is, that was really interesting.
That was good.
Thing blew out. It blew apart. This microphone screen literally just exploded in front of the mic. That was kind of crazy. It threw me off. But yeah, the emotional, being able to be okay with it and know that, hey, there's a lot of power in there to come from the emotional side and all that. And then know that, I can learn a lot from you and how to come from that promoter side. And I've had to turn myself into it over the years.
Well, you went into sales, so.
Yeah, I went from, absolutely. Went from complete planning and organization and type of job to I'm now selling me. It's crazy. But I don't know that I could quite do exactly your quadrant, Phil. Although there are times where
his own quadrant.
that controller part, it comes out every once in a while. Dealing with kids, or we need to take control of a situation. We recognize, or all of a sudden our plan got sidetracked and we're over here, and now we might need to regain control of it. And things just literally falling apart in front of me. It's slightly distracting.
It all happened when you started getting emotional.
I know, and I just sent my energy just boom, and then blew this thing wide open.
I can't handle that energy. Yeah, you got to watch those popsicles, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think the reality is, as we as human beings, and this has happened for, I think, at least the 3 of us, and I know for the 4th one in this room as well, Don, as we have grown and developed, while my competency is the controller, I can be very well balanced in all of the others, right?
Yeah.
Where some people, they're not, right?
Yes.
And they haven't developed. It's not that they can't. It's just that they haven't developed that ability. So back in the day, my brother and I went to, a training, and it was the disc analysis type of it was colors is actually what they used. But they're all basically the same thing. And my brother's scoring was literally almost right in the corner of all 4 of those. Now, his natural tendency is a complete supporter, yet he's very analytical. He's very intelligent, very structured in, if he's doing an art project or designing a graphic design, or now that he's a handyman, he has all of those abilities, but he is the most unorganized, fly by the seat of your pants. I've had to bail his butt out, so many times over the years. But when it comes to the testing of it, he could be anywhere in that.
Yeah, you were. You didn't come across, in my experience of you, as a controller the way I normally normally it's a controller, and you didn't come across that way. So at first it was difficult. I don't know. I think he's a promoter, and then you get to know you a little better. Well, he's obviously a supporter, so that's there. And then the controller part, you have it down to a way. Challenge with a lot of the controller A types or whatever you want to call them is they can become almost neurotic in their behavior, and that doesn't seem to happen with you, where you become neurotic in all of that. And the analytical part, it's there too.
You haven't obviously talked to my ex-wife or any of my ex-girlfriends.
No. Well, that's what I mean. Maybe you're like, oh yeah, I pull that out for them. That's when that shows up. Maybe it was with your kids, but with I guess we sort of learn that as well. Like, we don't always, like, you knew how you might have acted different with grandma and grandpa than you did with mom and dad. So we have that ability as well. Like, I don't pull the controller out for all of you. I just save it for family over here, and that's where I pull that out.
And that's interesting you say that, Jack, because there's a song, and I forget the exact name of the song that Billy Joel did, and this was probably back in the late 70s, early 80s. And it's about the mask that we wear, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think, and one of the things that I always said in my restaurant career is, as a manager, I looked at myself as kind of being like a chameleon, right? A chameleon is what? It's a lizard. Yet it's a lizard that can change its colors to adapt to the environment. It can be green, it can be brown, it can be multiple colors to fit in. And I realized in my management career that, like, I had to adapt to be able to get what I needed out of Micah and have Micah do what he needed to do without losing who I am, which is Chameleon the lizard, but I was able to adapt to who I was with. And, like I always say, one of the things I learned was, I could treat a high school jock in a certain way and get performance out of him, and it would be like a coach, right?
Right.
I could be beating on him, right?
Yeah.
But my 18-year-old hostess, if I did that, I would have a meltdown, right?
Yeah, she'd have
a
meltdown. Yeah.
It really was. And the song with Billy Joel was the masks that we wear.
Yeah. Yeah, and identifying who you're dealing with and how. Well, that's the whole idea of the quadrants, is identifying who you're dealing with so that you can get communication is what because like you said, I'm looking to get them to a place, or that I need them to accomplish this. It's a business. So would I communicate differently to a supporter than a controller? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, there's things you can do with a controller. They actually will move them, and the supporter would crumble and cry, and the promoter would be confused, and yeah.
So really, it boils down to just understanding where you sit in the personality quadrants, and so to be the most effective, so that whatever plan or, thought that you're moving towards, right? You go, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to operate in this manner. Now, you said something key, though. It's very important to be able to adapt to the other styles, because guess what? The plan probably changes quite frequently, right? How many times do people start off with, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it this way, and then they find out, I got to deviate and change the plan.
We just did it.
Yeah,
we did. When COVID hit, we had to change things, and then we kept adjusting and how we should do that. What should we do? This? Should we go this way? Should we go that way? And then as everything kept unfolding, then it turned into, no, why don't we just do Mastermind? We just did it.
Yep.
We just did the whole thing. We just had to keep, and that was another Tony Robbins thing I learned, whenever I started listening to him back in 1990 or something, was you always want to be flexible. Like, you want your goal and you want to know, this is where I'm going. You may need to be flexible in the approach. If something isn't working, it's the rat in the cheese. Don't keep going down the tunnel with no freaking cheese. So be flexible enough to go, well, that isn't working, and that's what we did. Like, I'm looking in the future, and I don't see this model getting us where we want to go.
Yep.
So we're going to need to be flexible and change that approach right now.
Absolutely. All right.
Hey, I'm going to bring Don in for a second.
The flexibility part is something that we're not doing. We're not looking in our business. We're not looking at our lives, and therefore we're so entrenched in it that we can't take that step away to look at it and go, oh, and that's where you lose your flexibility because you're so wrapped up. I got to do this. I got to be in there. I'm fighting the battle every day. And then you never step back and go, oh, I've been beating my head against the wall for the last 6 months. If I would have just stepped back and looked at what was going on, I could have asked for help or I could have changed my operation.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I just helped a gentleman that was referred to me to help me at my house do something. And one of the things he said as he got there and we talked for a few minutes and I addressed a different situation with him, then it came out that he had gotten there on the bus. All right, no problem. Yet your business is a handyman or painter, and it's for reasons. There was a divorce and things got lost, and then his truck blew up on the freeway. So I'm dealing with him, and I'm going, okay. So I'm figuring, your truck blew up, so right now you got to jump on a bus or whatever. So as he comes over, and I notice, I'm like, excuse me, I'm like, all right, so if he doesn't have a vehicle right now, and he's got to run to Home Depot or something because he doesn't have everything with him, he's showing up with just a couple parts or whatever, I'll give him a ride. So, the one day I gave him a ride twice, and I'm like, okay, so if you're just on the bus, that means he would have to leave my house, wait at the bus stop, take 2 buses to get to Home Depot, wait for the bus, come all the way back and find out, oh, that part didn't work, go back again. So as I'm giving him a ride home, and I go, so yeah, when's your truck blow up? And he goes, June. And so the next day, when I picked him up the next day to finish the job, I said, hey, man, this approach, it's not working. You're never going to get there. Like, it's never going to happen because by the time all this bus stuff goes on, and then he explained he's losing big jobs because he's not able to get to the job. It's in Chandler. It's $13,000. I'm not able to do it. The bus trip you're doing, it's probably taking you down to like $6 or $7 an hour. Seriously. When this is going on, I'm like, you got to change your approach. He's like, I don't know what to do. He would have just kept rolling down that road. I said, listen, man, you have a paint company, an LLC, you can do handyman work. That's fine. Right now, put it on the burner. Find something right around your house, whether it's a waiter job or you've done sales before. Get something close to home where you can Lyft or Uber or take a bus to a location, get out of the car, get the $25 an hour, and then just keep going home until you have enough for the vehicle, and then purchase the vehicle and then go back to this other business. And if you want to do some side jobs, whatever, do that. But this model you're running, that vehicle's never coming to you. Not at $6, $7 an hour, $10 an hour. It's just never going to get there because that money you're using on rent and food and lifts and bus passes. So you're never, ever going to get to the vehicle. So you need to change that approach. So, yeah, right when he said June, I was like, oh, ho, ho, ho.
Like this coming June or last June?
No, it was last year. I go, you're coming up on a year. Like the approach you're taking. So if your vision is to have this company, he had a pretty good-sized company with employees and everything. If your vision is to get that back, right now this approach is not going to work. You're going to be flexible. Really flexible. Like, have you waited tables? And he hadn't. I was like, well, I did that once when my car blew up. I had no choice. It was right by my house. I walked in. Are you hiring? I was going to go into the kitchen because I've done cooking before. And I was like, if I got to wash dishes, whatever. And they were like, we're hiring a waiter. Have you waited before? And I was like, no, I can do it, though. And they're like, all right, we'll train you for 2 days. And I did. And then I was waiting tables. And I was waiting tables to get all that money so that I could get another vehicle. Because the job I had, I lived in Surprise. There was no bus to Arrowhead at all back then. And I worked on 7th Street in Indian School. So I was like, whoa. And my roommate was giving me rides to Arrowhead and then taking the bus all over. And then I was only working half a day. So now I'm like, I'll never get a car. So I went to the restaurant, ended up getting the restaurant job so that I could get them. So, yeah.
Well, and, what's interesting in what you shared, Jack, about that guy is, from where he was within a fairly successful business and employees, that spiraled downhill. He probably hasn't, up until that moment, he probably didn't realize how far he kept sliding day after day, week after week, month after month.
Well, yeah, he went through a traumatic situation. Yeah. So, he's a great guy. He really is. He's a great guy. It's just anybody could get stuck like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that he hadn't had the idea or thought about it. He just hadn't expanded to the point of really wait tables. Like, dude, the price of food has skyrocketed, and all I've noticed is that means I'm doing like double tips. Like before Melinda and I to have lunch, it was about a $5 tip based on the bill coming to us for 20%. It's not $5 anymore.
Yeah.
That same lunch is $8 and $9 tip now. So these waiters are walking out with, $200, $250 a day, dude. So if you do that right down the street from your house, yeah, you're going to have a vehicle pretty quick. So go that route.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he's already in.
He's already in.
If you want to.
So our guest today is an ENO member, Don Croyle, registered agent with the IRS. Welcome, Don.
Morning. Well, it's great to be here.
And so we're going to just have a conversation, but you mentioned something, when you jumped in a moment ago about being flexible, right? And when you were sharing that, what came to mind with me is you're a mountain biker. Where have you seen, like, you've had to change your approach in something just mountain biking, right? It's not business related, it's nothing else, but yet you still have to change your approach sometimes.
My biggest thought on that is going down that beautiful blue trail and you make a small little turn, not quite the right turn, and you end up on that double black technical and you're going, and you quickly come to a stop and reassess and rethink your mode. I was up in Moab riding and was on a beautiful blue trail. It was gorgeous, and ultimately got lost, went down this double black. My heart was pumping pretty bad. I got done with that ride. It was frightening, and reanalyzed before I went down the hill instead of after I was down the hill.
That's why I'll stay with road cycling. It's just faster or slower. That's about it. Well, Mike, I think you've got some conversation points with Don.
Well, yeah, Don. So, in being in the tax preparing services and in that industry, what have you noticed? We're talking about planning and preparation and all that. I mean, I know that's really a big key focus for you and your business. Like, you want to expand on that?
It's a huge thing, and what I see with most people is they fall into a job. They become self-employed some random way. Somebody knocked on their door and said, "Hey, Micah, you do this so awesomely. I want you to do it some more." And you go, "Oh, that's a great idea. I really think that's awesome." And you just start doing it, and it's this random fall in, and you don't do any planning. All of a sudden, you've got a $20,000 or $30,000 a year job going on the side, or you've quit your W-2 and you have done zero planning, zero preparation, and then you sit down with your tax guy or you sit down with your financial advisor, and everyone looks at you and goes, "Where's your records? What's your goal? Where's your plan? What are you thinking?" And everybody's sitting there going, you're going, "But I'm doing awesome. I'm doing great." Come with some planning. Plan a little bit, not to say that you have to be totally planned out and spend thousands of dollars to start. Sit down with your trusted advisors in the beginning before you get too far in. Know that you want to do it. However, when you're there there's a cutoff point where it's not a hobby anymore. It's going to be a business. When it's a hobby, hey, enjoy yourself. Have what kind of fun records you want. Do what you want. Now you become a business, and I'm going to file a tax return. The IRS wants records. I want records. You should want records. How are you running your business if you don't know what you're spending? I have a great story about that just recently with somebody who kind of floored me. It was a gal who came in. She runs she's a nail tech. You'd think, nail tech. She's making over 6 figures as a nail tech by herself. Wow. And she has no idea where her money was going. She's just like, I'm traveling, I'm flying around the country, I'm doing all these cool things. And I'd sit down and I'd say, well, what's your rent? About, I think I pay about $600 a month. I'm not really sure. Okay, so what do you pay for your cell phone? I don't know. I think it's like $63 a month. $63 a month is what you're paying for your cell phone. And I basically said to her, look, go home. Here's an Excel spreadsheet. Fill this out. Think about your business. And she went home, and about 4 weeks later, she comes back. She's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was spending so much money in this area, or that this cost me that much. And my supplies are a lot higher than what I thought. My rent was less than what I was telling you. And I found out I was spending a lot more on Amazon. Like, that gives you power in your business by having that bit of planning in there. And now you can take that vision that you have and go, oh, now I put some pieces together and go, now I can go towards my vision even tighter and better.
Absolutely. Awesome. So you're working with clients, and finally you've come up for air. Right?
Yes. There's still a few extensions out there.
Oh, there's always extensions. However, you're finally like, all right, you're through the thick of it, right? Tax day is behind us. What are some things that you've noticed that, or any suggestions for people going into, like when they're looking for a tax preparer, why should they come to you? Like, what do you, what makes Don special and unique? Now, I mean, I personally like you because you're my personal tax guy, right?
Well, you got about 45 minutes.
You've got 23.
23. Yeah. All right. The things that I notice are people tend to either not plan at all or they over plan. And what I mean by the over plan is they went to some seminar and they're a pool guy, or they're just getting started and they've spent thousands. And when I say thousands, tens, $15,000, $20,000 on some business guru program. And their revenue is $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year. And I look at them and go, well, do you know what you bought? I understand you wanted to do planning, and I understand that this is important, yet they've bought something that's too much for what they're doing. Their revenue, they're a moving company, and they made $15,000 last year. He spent all the money that he had on this plan, wasn't able to buy a moving truck. To go to your example with the plumber and handyman who, how does he run his business? He borrows trucks and rents a U-Haul. How long is that sustainable as a moving guy? And then what kind of liability does he have with using a U-Haul truck to move other people's stuff? I had to look at him and just go, you really need to go and buy a truck, and go talk to your insurance guy, because you're running a really thin line here of, if something falls off that truck, you're in a lot of trouble, or something damages that truck because you're running a commercial business in your U-Haul, you need to talk to someone who's an expert in that arena. And that's something else that I see people not doing, is asking questions of the experts in their arena. They listen to, and not to say that everybody on YouTube and out there in television land is not an expert. It's that I get this a lot. My father, my grandfather, my cousin, said to do this. Well, what does your cousin do? Well, he works at McDonald's. So you're taking business advice from your cousin about how to run your business. If he was Robert Kiyosaki, if he's all these other people, sure, go listen to them as gurus. And there are people on YouTube that are good. There are people out there on TikTok and that are doing great work. Don't listen to your cousin once removed who lives in a mobile home and can't rub two nickels together to figure out how to buy a rental property. They're probably not that person that you should be taking advice from. One of the things we all pretty much agree on is emulate the people you want to be like. If they are successful entrepreneurs, emulate them. Jack, you're awesome in your personal development. If you want to be a personal development guru, emulate Jack. If you want to learn how to work on life insurance and run a development program, talk to Micah. If you want to do the same thing with Phil, you want to run a successful Melaleuca program, perfect. Emulate who you want to work with. And because they've done that, they've been there, and they're willing to share. People don't ask. I mean, I'm off on side topics here, but
that's okay.
Well, I think, Don, one of the things that you hit on, and, we all know this, is that, you have a very wide and broad background and experience, which allows you to give a unique perspective to your tax clients, and value add that maybe a lot of times a CPA may not have, because, they went to school, they got trained as a CPA, and they do, they do the tax return, right? But you've got a lot of business background. So you were talking about, starting a business. Well, you've started a business, multiple businesses, right? You've done life insurance, you've done mortgages, you invest in real estate currently, right? So you've got a wide variety of background that you can guide people that I think they can't get in a lot of other places.
Well, thank you very much. Very nice words there. Thank you. I would agree with you completely. And one of the things I tell people is interview who you're working with, because there are basically 4 levels of people that do tax returns. There's enrolled agents. They're awesome. They're gods in the world of the IRS. Does that mean that they're great at everything? No, because none of us are great at everything. And an enrolled agent has certain abilities and does certain things. Certified public accountants. It's amazing how many times I hear, I need a CPA. Do you really? Your tax return is not CPA worthy or enrolled agent worthy. It's 2 rental properties and you've got a W-2. You don't need a certified public accountant. And not every certified public accountant wants to do taxes. Right. I know plenty of tax people or CPAs that won't touch a tax return. And I know plenty of certified public accountants that won't do books. They only do tax returns. And they specialize in certain areas, just like I specialize in certain areas. I'm a registered tax preparer with the IRS. I take continuing ed. I go through a lot of hoops to have knowledge of what goes on out there. There are certain areas that I won't touch. I had a client who asked me about foreign trusts. I'm like, I don't know anything about foreign trusts. Let me make a few phone calls. If you come to me about real estate, I'm really good. Starting a business, I'm really good. Don't ask me about oil and gas. Don't ask me about large businesses. That's not my arena to play in. And you should really interview your tax guy before you get too far along in the process, because they can be overcharging you. They can just take your shoebox full of stuff and then hand it back to you and say, "Oh, you're all done." And if you don't have any knowledge and you're too trusting of them, when you walk away, they could have missed large deductions. They could have overstated your income, given you I gave you $5,000, got you $5,000 back. How did you do that? Well, I threw in an extra dependent. Well, that's legal. But however, I've seen that done. I've seen people get child care deducted when they don't have any children. I've seen businesses be put on a tax return when they don't have a business. There's all these levels and things that need to be done, and that goes back to do some planning, do some organization. And then the last person I always like to talk about is Joe on the street. There's Joes on the street that do tax returns. I've seen some crazy stuff done by Joes on the street. Big word of advice to everybody listening. If they don't sign your tax return, run screaming from the building. Don't sit down with someone who does your taxes and goes, I'm not going to sign. If they don't sign it, your butt's in the sling, 100%. And all the time, your butt's in the sling 100% because you're the one who provided the information. My job is really to try to make a story for the IRS at the end of the day and build this. This is what's going on in John Doe's life, in Micah's life. This is what's happening tax-wise. And it's a story. And I want the story to be legal, ethical, and have you pay the lowest legal liability without stepping over that line. And there's a lot of gray lines in the IRS that you can fight. There's a lot of black and white lines that you can't fight. And you have to know kind of where those stand.
So, Don, on the CPA or the tax person not wanting to sign off on that, now you would go scream running because maybe something's wrong with them. What if the CPA is going, I'm not signing off on that because this is all crap? So that wouldn't be you running screaming. That would be you facing the fact that you're a mess. Because I have a situation where Melinda is like, I'll do all this, yet I'm not signing off on any of this stuff. Like, no. Like our stuff? Sure. Sign off on that all day. She knows what it is. She's just dealing with one certain person where it's like, no. I mean, here's the best that I could figure out with all this, and I will never sign on this. So in that case, it wasn't really on her that she's not signing because she's signing because she doesn't like what's in front of her.
And that's having a discussion with whoever's you're working with. I had a guy a long time ago who you just knew he was pulling numbers out of the air. And after about 3 years, I finally just was like, you got to do your own return. I'm not putting my name on this because I have no idea where this is coming from. And he had just been audited a few years prior to me seeing his returns. And I'm like, So you're absolutely right, Jack. I would. It's not
like
always.
Like before you run, ask them why you're not signing it. And if they can show you because you have a mess here and I'm not letting that file with my name on it when it's this messy, well, then you need to take care of that.
Yeah.
And if they're not able to show that, then maybe they just don't want to put their name on it because of what they're doing.
Correct. It's definitely. I had a client who came to me one day, and I got lots of good stories, who wanted me to put a business down, and I was like, you don't. And I had asked her, she's like, do you have a business? She's like, no, I just need a big refund because I got kids in college. I'm just need you to.
Oh, good plan.
I just need, and my last guy, he did it. He didn't have any problem doing it. I said, well, why aren't you going back to him? Well, I can't find him. And
yeah, he's in the county jail over there.
Wasn't that in the Seinfeld issue, I think it was, where the tax guy disappeared? It was,
Yep. Yeah.
So I wouldn't put my name on it, and she ultimately went someplace else or did it herself. And she can be 100% liable for that. I don't want to play that game.
So if you put your name on it, then you get pulled in?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Ultimately what clients don't understand is I prepare it. It's my professional work. Yet at the end of the day, it's your numbers. Yeah. I'm taking your numbers and putting them into the return. And if your numbers are bogus and I have no way to know that they're bogus, the IRS is not going to look at me. They're going to look at you, and you're the one going to jail, not me.
Right.
If I put in fake numbers and I just make something up, that fake business, now I'm in trouble. Yes. I'm going to jail.
Because you knew it was a fake business.
Because I knew it was a fake business.
Yeah. And yet on the flip, if you didn't know, but and it was a one-off case, the IRS is not going to do anything to you. But if you had a record of Don seems to have a lot of clients that are in this situation, then that can be a black mark for you with the IRS.
100%. There's a story about Intel employees having that happen to them. It was a very big scandal about 15 years ago.
So Don, tax laws change, and so what are just a couple of the maybe 2 or 3 biggest changes or lack of knowledge that people have thinking back, like mortgage deduction and things like, what are a few things like that today aren't there, right? That people might like, oh, that's I used to do that.
Probably the 2 biggest that I get asked about a lot are, I want to itemize. You probably aren't going to itemize. That law changed 7 years ago. Your standard deduction now has gotten to the size, if you're married filing joint, is $27,700, and if you're single, it's half that number. Unless you have a large mortgage, you have a lot of medical, you have a lot of charitable contributions, you're probably not going to itemize. Not to say that I don't want to see your mortgage statement or hear about your charitable contribution or find out about your medical, because it might be a deduction on the state of Arizona, yet it's probably not going to happen. I get clients sitting down, I'm going to itemize this year, and I'm like, well, how much did you have? $10,000. I'll put the numbers in. It's not going to matter at the end of the day. And the other big one that seems to be popping up more and more is employee expenses, unreimbursed employee expenses. They got rid of that about the same time. People come down and they're like, I drove for work and my employer doesn't reimburse me for my travel. My employer doesn't reimburse me for my meals. Sorry, if they don't reimburse you, it's not a deduction. Go get a side gig. Now let's talk. Become self-employed. Get yourself a business on the side, and now all of a sudden you have a stack of deductions. If you're just a W-2 employee, you don't have any of those deductions that you used to have that you could work with, because there was a lot of fraud. The IRS looked at it and went, there's so much fraud in the plate. We're just going to take that plate away. We can't leave that out there anymore. So I recommend to everybody, get yourself a side gig. All of a sudden your cell phone's deductible. You got all these cool things. It's not always deductible. This is a general advice here. Depends on each individual's situation. Yet now I can sit down and maybe you have a home office. Maybe I can write off your vehicle. Maybe I can write off your office expenses, your advertising. All of these things now are coming off of what you're making, and it could be a real big help for you.
Awesome. Any questions over there for you, Micah?
Don, what rustles the leaves in the tree? What kind of blows the skirt up a little bit? What gets you excited about taxes, and why do you love doing it?
For me, the biggest thing on the taxes side is helping small business owners and startups get going. Because I see a lot of cruddy advice. I see people that set up wild business entities. Oh, I have a Arizona corporation, but it's based in New Mexico with a Nevada subcorp, and then I got a Wyoming, and you're like, huh? And okay, well, maybe we're filing 4 tax returns. That's going to be $3,000 for you to file a tax return. And what was your revenue last year? Well, I made $10,000. Okay, well, your tax return is going to cost $3,000. You made $10,000. And did you understand what your situation was? No, I don't understand. Well, let's simplify that down. Arizona costs $85 to start a corporation. If I'm a good attorney, I'm going to find you anyways. So all this little obfuscation that people are talking about, well, they can't sue me. For $85 now, you've started your business and you're doing it the right way. Let's set up your books the right way. It doesn't have to be $1,000 QuickBooks. It can be a spreadsheet. Let's get you started so you have the basics of what needs to happen in your business versus just going out in a shotgun effect and going, oh, now what do I do? Oh my gosh, I found out this. I like to get people started the right way. I'm not the guy who's going to be doing a very expensive high-end business, But if I set you up the right way to start, when you do transition, it's going to be a nice, simple transition. Oh, your books are all in order. We're going to move you up to the next level, and now you're going to go to that enrolled agent with that multi-million-dollar business that we built together, because you need to flex your advisors around you, your financial advisor, your tax advisor, your attorney, your personal development person. All of those people have to be involved in your life building your business. It's not just, don't just work in your business. You got to work on your business.
Absolutely. That's the big one. How many people are still working in their business, right? And then that goes back to the, the planning piece, right? Like, did you plan to work in your business till the day you take your last breath?
And how are you going to get out of your business? That's something else I see a lot of people not doing, is they get so much into working in their business that there is no transition. There is no walk away. What is your plan to get out of the business at the end of the day? Well, if you don't have a plan, you haven't done any organization, what are you going to do?
Fly by the seat of your pants.
Yep. You had another one.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, like, I was hearing some stuff about the Corporate Transparency Act and all that. It's just, you want to expand on that?
Corporate Transparency Act. Well, for all of you out there in television land that have not heard this or haven't heard about it, because you probably haven't, if you own a business that is registered with a state, i.e. you have an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, a partnership, anything that's registered with the state, you are mandated by a new federal law that actually came around in like 2017 to register with the federal government who the owners are of the business. Now, there's some nuances in there I'm not going to get into because of time. If you haven't heard about it, look it up. The Corporate Transparency Act. You do not need to spend thousands of dollars, because I've seen the letters go out. Oh, you own a business. We'll register it for $1,000. You can do it in 5 minutes by yourself, or for very little with your trusted advisors. It basically, the gist is, whoever the owners are of your business have to notify the federal government who they are, where they are, and what their ownership is in your business, in a business. And you have to keep it up to date. And what they're basically doing it for is to fight fraud. After COVID, there was a lot of fraud, and people took a lot of money from the federal government and didn't give it back. And so the Corporate Transparency Act basically came to bear. It had been passed previous to that. However, they had kind of looked the other way. Now it's happening.
But hasn't the government been taking money from us and not giving it back to us?
Yes. I can't go there. I'm not going to be political.
$20,000 for a toilet seat, $15,000 for a hammer, right? That's how much it costs. So I'm on the younger side of things, right? Feel youthful. We see a lot of AI transition happening we use AI all the time now. Right? I mean, how many people are popping on ChatGPT or Bard or whatever it is to start writing content? Is AI going to show up in the tax field anytime soon?
Well,
or is it already here?
It's in the process. The IRS has basically said a few things which will floor people. They're going to start looking at your social media. They're going to start looking, if they're not already looking at it on test programs, and looking at, hey, Jack, you went and played a gig this weekend. Typical gig rate is $500 a night, right? You're going to make $500. We noticed that you did that gig 10 times. That's $5,000. We noticed that you didn't report it on your tax return. Hey, we'd like to have you write us a check for that self-employment income. What's going on? And people think, well, we'll be on cash, or we're gonna hide these transactions. It's all slowly going away because AI is going to get into those nooks and crannies where a typical IRS auditor isn't going to have the time or the ability to get in there and really dig. it's going to be on that side. And on the good side, AI is going to make filing tax returns easier, simpler, and faster because AI can look at really fast. Does your return make sense? Does it jive with everything out there? Which will mean you can get your refunds faster. You're going to be subject to less audits. When you do get audited, a real audit, and ladies and gentlemen, getting a letter from the IRS is not an IRS audit. It is just a request for information. So don't show up at my door in your pajamas and no shoes on like I've had clients do. It's just a letter. We'll get it solved. And the other little tidbit of public service advice, the IRS isn't going to call you for any gift cards. That's not how they get paid. They do everything in writing.
It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. So public service advice. So AI is good and AI is bad. It's going to help and it's going to hurt.
Always. And if the government, we won't get government. Okay. We're here.
We're there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, let's give our guest a little applaud there.
It sounds like they liked you a lot.
Fantastic work. Fantastic.
Well, I like you guys a lot.
So, Don, tell our listeners how to find you.
Don, well, my website's AZ, like Arizona, NIT, which stands for Notary Insurance Tax Group.com. So Don at AZNIT Group is my website. Forget the Don in the front. AZNIT Group. And see here, do I do phone numbers?
Sure.
All right. 480-442-0808. That's 480-442-0808. I'm doing it in my best radio voice.
Yeah, you did a good one.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap, guys. Thanks. Don, thanks for joining us on the ENO Success Business Podcast. And Jack, I think we're done.
That's it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.